All right. I want to welcome everybody out to another Ivinex online training webinar. This one is on email templates this time. My name is Brett Lund. I'm going to be the host, and we're going to learn a bunch of stuff about email templates, how to use them, and how to create them, and how to use them for automation, and even some other tricks that I think even advanced users may not know about. So, a couple quick notes. During this, there is a chat tool on your Join Me, or there's a chat button on your Join Me tool that you can initiate. So if you have questions or comments during the webinar, feel free to use the chat tool for that. I'll do my best to answer questions and or demonstrate an answer to your question. So during this webinar, the only audio that will be enabled is my own, just to keep, because I am recording this. And so I think we will just jump right in and get started. Okay. So first thing about email templates is why would we want to use them? Now, an email template is in Ivinex. You access it by going to your email templates tab across the top. Hopefully you have permission to view that, or permission to create, email templates. But we're just going to assume that you have the tab available to you and all the permissions for creating and modifying email templates. So why would I want to make one? I'm sure that you've probably sent out lots of emails before where it's similar wording, maybe the exact same wording, and maybe it's just who you're sending to is different. So for those kind of times, if you're copying and pasting a bunch of things, sending out an email over and over again, the same kind of email, you can create an email template or a canned response for that purpose. It's a lot faster to create just one template and then just insert it when you're going to send the email. All right, so maybe a couple suggestions of when to use email templates. You can use them. Ivinex can send automated emails. And of course, manual emails, you can send those yourself. For automated emails, just a couple ideas. I mean, the sky's the limit on this. Whatever supports your business process is really what should be, is really what should be here in this list, but I'm just going to kind of point out a couple that I've seen people use commonly. Maybe support tickets. Support, maybe there's a form on your website. Someone fills it out. The data comes into Ivinex. Maybe it sends an automated email to the support person who's been assigned to the ticket. Maybe it also emails the customer that you've received the support ticket. Maybe as the support ticket is being modified or changed, or there's a resolution or a change in status, maybe that triggers an automated email. So instead of typing that up, it would use a template over and over again, and maybe some of the information in that template would change based on what we're doing here. Maybe some kind of receipt, or an example of an automated email. Maybe you're doing some kind of marketing that on day one, you need to send a certain kind of email to somebody. Maybe you're using the day they were first created as a lead, maybe in your system. Day one, they get email 1. 7 days later, they get email 2. It could all be set up to automatically just send out these emails at whatever interval. That's an idea. Welcome emails, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of ideas for automating. For manual emails, sales department may have very similar verbiage that they need to send over and over again. Have you seen this deal? Have you had a chance to look at our new software? Whatever. Creating an email template for that. Support, marketing. Maybe you are calling people every day and you need to send them an email as a backup for I'm following up with you, and you want to create an email template for that. Again, I could probably talk about this all day, but there's, whatever works for you, or whatever you find yourself doing repetitively, when sending emails, look to create an email template for that. All right. So what can we do with email templates? I'm going to jump in and show you here in a minute, but the idea is that you've got a rich text editor for creating the email template. And so you have all these normal kind of tools, and I'm going to go over all of them. But ways to format your email template. And what else? Oh, I'm just going to jump in and kind of demonstrate these tools that you have available to you for creating and customizing your email templates before I talk too much about the text or the what would be included in because we can have static content and dynamic content in here, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about just creating and customizing. So I'm going to jump into here. And we're going to zoom in a little bit like we always do. And email templates. So we're going to go here. I've created a few here for this webinar. And we're just going to pick a very generic one. Trying to find which one. Maybe this one. Okay, that's pretty generic. Where's the other one that I've got? I think we'll just go with this one for the moment. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is this one actually has a combination of some dynamic content and static content. So just the normal text that you see here would be considered, the static content. Thanks for your request. And then some of these field syntax, which I'll talk about in a little bit, would pull in, maybe like a name and that kind of stuff. So all the tools that we have available here, you have your basic stuff, or I could highlight some text, click bold, make it italic, underline. So you can style it however you want. Selecting the text again and then turning those tools off. You've got some alignments where I can center it, do some kind of right or left if you'd like. You can adjust the font size. You can highlight a section of text and say, maybe that's a little bigger, like that. What else? One thing that you may note is that a lot of people may compose things in Microsoft Word. Now, I've got nothing against Microsoft Word, but it also is probably one of the worst tools to try to paste out, to copy whatever's in Word and paste into some other system. It comes with a lot of extra formatting that is just, not needed. So you might find in a lot of tools like this that there's a special tool just for pasting from Word, and it's because it strips out all the extra formatting, which is a good idea. And then you can also paste in something as plain text, which is nice because you'll start off with a nice clean text that you can use this editor to style. You can style in here. So copy anything you want and then use maybe one of these tools to either paste as plain or if it specifically came from Microsoft Word. Let's see what else. We've got a few things like indenting and bullets, links as well. I could just grab some text like this, click on the insert link, little pop-up. I could say, google.com or, Ivinex or just whatever your URL is that you want them to click on. You type it in there. You don't have to set much else. Target would be if they clicked it, what would happen. But normally they're going to be reading it in, well, actually, you may want them to open it in a new window or maybe the same window if they're doing a web-based mail. If you don't do anything here, it's not that big of a deal because it'll just fall back to whatever the browser does normally. Most important thing is to actually have a URL in there. So it could be anything. I'm just going to type something like http ivinex.com. Insert that. So what happens is I see this text that I highlighted, you will be receiving, and the link behind the scenes, when I click that, is going to be, ivinex.com. If I made a mistake, I could just highlight that text and click unlink or break that link. That removes the code for the link. If you're a little more advanced, maybe a lot more advanced, and you know some HTML, there is this HTML source button off to the right. So what I'm seeing here visually, I can click this and look at kind of the code if I wanted to. So if you know a bit about HTML, you can use this to maybe paste in some HTML formatting if you like. Now, the rich text editor kind of only understands HTML based off of these tools available. So if you've got some really complicated HTML stuff in here, it may strip that out because it needs to display it. So keep it simple. Email programs for rendering email are also, really behind the times. So you don't need anything too complicated in here. Tables, paragraphs, bold, strong, those kind of things. So right here we've got a P style, text align left. So when I highlighted that text and clicked, left, this is what code was written behind the scenes. Now if I wanted to remove that, I could just remove this bit of code out of there. And that should do it. Okay. So here's this this font. And I could pick a different size, or if I knew how to adjust the HTML, I could just remove this whole span tag right here if I wanted. Say no more span, and then take out the ending span. Click update. That's it. Puts me back where we started. All right. What else? You can also do images. You could insert an image. I'm going to go back to here real quick. An example would be maybe your logo. You could upload a web-ready logo. So a good idea is to format your graphic that you're going to upload into the email. A good idea would be to format it so that it is web-ready. Not like a picture that you take with your camera and it's about 300 resolution, about a megabyte, and try to put it in an email. It's a bad idea. Just have it prepared down to web resolution so it makes the email snappy and fast to load. What you see here, these two boxes, represents a table in the tool. There's this table tool, which I'll kind of show you that in a minute. What you see here is you see the representation of the table, which is one row with two columns. And this will not show up when you actually send the email. It'll just look like my logo on the left and this information on the right. So you can use tables to kind of create different layouts if you want. And Outlook programs, software like that, really can only do layout with tables. It's not advanced enough to kind of understand web pages nowadays. So you would have to use tables for maybe a more complicated layout. Let's go back here. All right, so the image tool is pretty easy. If I wanted to insert one right here, and I don't have an image ready, but we'll just talk about what's available here. You click on Insert Image, click on the file to upload, and that's just pulls up this tool where you're browsing your hard drive. Put in the height and the width, so it sets it, in here to be the height and width of the actual image, and then save, and it will insert your image into this email. To create a table, create a little space here. We can click the Table tool. This brings up a mini wizard, which allows us to pick columns and rows, whatever we want to do there. How many rows, how many columns. Within reason, you can use some of these some of the settings in here for spacing and height or width. Normally, I would probably put width at maybe 100%, but it does support things like, pixels, 100 pixels if you want. 100% just means it'll go from one end to the other. So we'll say 2 columns, 2 rows, and we don't need a height. We'll insert that. So we get this representation of the table. I could say, column 1, column 2, data, something like that. And when I send it, it'll just look like, kind of how you see it without this gray box. So there are a few style, things that you can do. So what if I made a mistake? I only have 2 rows and 2 columns, and I really needed more. You may be tempted to click the table button again, but that would insert a new table. So how can I adjust the one that I have? You can click inside of it so it's selected like this, then click this table tool again, and it will pull up kind of my settings. So I could say I need 3 rows now. If my keyboard messed up. Sorry about that, guys. Go back to here. And I didn't save it anyway. All right, well, you get the idea. The idea is that you can have the table in there. You could select inside of it, click on the edit table, and make some adjustments. Again, if you are a little bit more of an advanced user, there is this CSS Style Editor. That's another way of formatting elements. So I could highlight that, click the CSS Style Editor. We have a whole bunch of great stuff I could do. I could say you are, an underline, maybe pick a totally different font. I don't know, all sorts of different things, borders. Anyway, you get the idea, text alignments. So that's really handy for customizing text, the CSS editor. But a lot of the tools are just right here anyway. I could just highlight it and pick a color right here. I could say what color? Blue. So now it's blue. All right. So that's kind of the ideas, all the different tools you have. You do have a spell checker. I didn't mention that one. Oh, and there's this one, full screen mode. If you're looking in this little box and you're wondering, this is really hard to see, you can go full screen mode like that. You got a lot more space to work, and then toggle it back down. So I think I've touched on about everything here, at least all the important pieces. Okay, so I would consider this to be, a fairly straightforward template. We're going to go to a different one here. Wish I could find that one that oh, and there it is finally. Okay, let's go full screen on this one. All right, so this one is what you saw on that slide, and it just represents static information only. Maybe a support request. Thanks for your support request. An agent will be, has been assigned and will call you, whatever you need to say. But it's not customized in any way. It's just generic, where maybe every support request I get, this email goes out initially. But it doesn't tell me who, who the agent is that was assigned, and, maybe thank you, and then it's not personalized. It doesn't say my name. Maybe I'm the one who supported submitted the request. So this is an example of just static content only. So the next part I want to talk about is before we do anything with that, let's talk about the notification templates, because when you send emails, there's you build them the same, but there is an email template that is used for the email itself. And then if somebody opens the email, you can build what's called a notification template. So I've built one of those. And it can be very simple. Doesn't need to be too fancy. This is what you get back if somebody opens an email. And how would we use it? First, let's do this one. An example of this one, I'm going to go to our leads, and I'm going to act like I'm going to send an email. And I'm going to use this heads up lead thing here. Let's go to leads, pick this guy. It's a manual email. How do I insert the template? I pick it right here. Okay. So what do we see here? So if I wanted to manually send this email, I would just pick which template I wanted. The template would load in. The subject is replaced with the subject of the email template. And the body of the content is also filled in. And this one had some codes in there for pulling in data from the record So instead of, I'm actually getting the data out of Ivinex and it's inserting it into this. So maybe this one is manual. Maybe this one's sent automatically when a new lead is assigned. Notification. Down here, I could say notify me when opened, and what is sent back to me when it's opened. I could just pick a notification template. So I've already built that one. So these are all the tools working together. Inserting a template. I'm sending a manual email. I've decided to have it notify me, and I picked a template that will contain the information or the text that gets sent back to me when they open it. All right. So I think we should probably talk about, let's see, what's next. Oh, let's talk about the content itself. So I'm going to come back to here real quick. Before I move on, does anybody have any questions about customizing or creating email templates? Any questions so far on that? No? Okay, good. Let's continue on then. Okay, so dynamic and static content. I showed you basically it's just text, or text is just static content. It always says that every single time. But maybe we want to personalize it and pull in some information from a record, like their name, and have it say, Dear Jimmy Leadster here, and have that dynamically pull in. And maybe even the sign-off or the signature is dynamic as well, based on the person who sent it. And that can work as well. So I'm going to demonstrate that piece. I'm going to talk a little bit about field syntax, which is the mechanism that we use to pull in data. I'm not going to go too far in on field syntax because we have another webinar coming up on field syntax, but I'm going to give you just enough information to get started. So we'll jump in here, and let's go back to email templates. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab this one as an example again. It's got a lot of moving pieces to it. Go full screen. Okay, so field syntax is a way of calling to a field. The most important thing to know about that is it's context sensitive. The field syntax is context sensitive to where we are when the email is sent. So if the trigger is, or let's just say it's manual, and I happen to be looking at a lead, and I choose to send an email from my lead, and I pick this template, my field syntax right here, which says field :first _ name, is looking for an actual field in that module called first name. So it's definitely context sensitive. If I am over here in a totally different module and I don't have a field called first name and I pick this template, this is going to be blank. It will not be able to find anything to pull into the email template. So that's probably the most important thing about field syntax and email templates, is to understand it's just sensitive to where you are when you send it. And that also is important for automated emails. Because if the trigger for like a workflow sending an automatic email is, for example, when a lead is created, send this email. So the trigger is when a lead is created. So this is our starting point. So the template that we use for the workflow to send would look to the lead module for any field data replacement. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So in this one, we have simple field syntax, field first name, and field last name, field phone, field description. I'm going to go back to the leads module and we'll look for those. So here's a first name field, a last name field. Here's a description. and I can't remember the other one. I already forgot it. Anyway, so how do we know, I put in there field first underscore name, but this field is called first name like that. So how do I, why did I do underscore? Why did I type it like that? To answer that, we need to go into the admin, because there are two settings for a field I need to point out. Here's a field, first name. Now, what it's called, what this label reads is that, the label setting. But what is the field according to Ivinex? How do we refer to it? Well, we've got two ways we refer to every single field. And that is this part up here, the machine name or first underscore name. It's never going to have spaces or anything like this. It's not going to have capital letters. So what you see in the label isn't necessarily how Ivinex, what Ivinex calls that field. So first underscore name. That's one way. The other one is every field you create in Ivinex has an ID. And you can call to a field by its ID. So an example of that, let me just copy this so I've got it. And let me say this first, I like to use the machine name over the ID because I can read this and it makes sense to me later on versus IDs, but there's nothing stopping you from using IDs. So we'll go back to email templates, and we'll change this from field first name to field 15151. It's essentially the same thing. What wouldn't work is if you went field and you tried to type it like the label name, field space, first space name. That would not work. It would just be blank. Ivinex wouldn't know what to do with it. I'm going to reload that without saving it. Okay. Any questions on, let's first talk about this one here. This is about as far as I'm going to go on field syntax, but this is a little bit more of an advanced example, which is the owner, at least in this case. In this case, for the lead module, we have a field called owner, I believe, and I'm going to double check that. And then we're looking for who's the owner and what is the first name of the owner. So let's go back here. Okay, so here's owner. We've got, these people. And to answer what kind of field this is, we need to jump into the admin real quick and see what populates this field. So we'll go to owner field. We'll notice it is a user data type. The user data type pulls from your users in Ivinex. So it's not like we're calling to it like a normal data module, like maybe a contact module, and we have a link to a contact module or something. Instead, the user module, the users in Ivinex are represented in here by a user data type. So what fields do we have available there? Everything, for the user, their first name, their extension, all of that information. So we used what's called a chaining syntax, where we first said, give me the value of the owner field, so field owner, and then once we are here, we need to travel into the user area and get maybe the first name of the user. So if it's a demo or Ivinex demo, first name Ivinex, last name demo, we would like to retrieve that from inside the user area. So that's using chaining syntax and email templates right here. And it looks like this. You got field, colon, owner, then colon, first name. So go to one field, travel in there, get another value. And you can use that in, in all over the place in Ivinex, the chaining. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about here real quick is something pretty tricky, I think. I've had a few people ask me this. What if I wanted to send an email that contained a link that you could click, that you could click in the email that would take me directly to that record? So maybe a new lead is created. I get an email that says, hey, new lead, click here. I click it, and I zip into Ivinex, and I'm looking at it. That is entirely possible. Of course, it does require you to be logged in. But if you aren't logged in, you'll hit the login screen, then you log in, and then it will continue on to that record. So that's pretty neat. So how does it work? You've got this URL string here, and the actual path to the record for Ivinex is represented by the name, your Ivinex site. So, whatever.ivinex.com/navigator.php ? And if anybody wants this, I can send it to you. Just let me know. And then you've got this question mark, and then we pass it what's called the collection type ID, and this is your module ID. So all of that represents your module ID. And how do I find that? And this is version based. In the admin, when you select your module, you should see this right here, ID that. If you don't, then we just need to put you on a newer version. But that's your module ID, so you can use that. So we're going to first say, hey, jump into Ivinex, and then give me this module and the collection ID, which is actually the record ID or the unique record of that I want to see. And then this last part, collection ID equals, this looks like field syntax to me, where I'm calling to the record ID and it's dynamically created in my email template. So it when I send the email, it gets the record ID of that record and then sends this email to me. And so this would be like collection ID equals 5 or 10,042 or whatever. So let's demonstrate that. Leads. All right, let's take a peek. He's record ID 1. Let's pick somebody else. Record ID 3. Okay, so that's his record ID. So let's act like we're going to send an email, and we're going to pick that lead template. And you'll see right here that I used field syntax in the link to dynamically add variables to my link. You can't get the module dynamically, but you can get the record dynamically. So it's just an example of how to, it's kind of tricky, it's kind of a nice little trick. You don't have to output the whole link like this. It could simply be like this. It could say click here, and then what's behind that link? That string, that whole same exact string, all of this, which would take me directly to it. So there's a trick for you. Okay, see if there's anything else. I could probably just take a moment and look at some of these other email templates that I created, see if there's much difference here. Support ticket, I've demonstrated all of that. Pretty much the same. Yeah, okay. So what I'll do next, unless anyone has any questions, anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Let's just look at, and I'm not going to dive too far into workflows, but let's look how we could use email templates in a workflow. So I've already pretty much started. We're going to go to the workflow wizard, and I've got right here, this leads area, example auto email. So let's walk through the settings on this one. So I've created a new workflow, and your trigger could be whatever you want. So maybe it's when the record is created. When a record is created, where in my leads module, I currently have a blocking filter on here so that this actually doesn't do anything. So that's good, but maybe you'd want additional filter. So when a record is created and it's a new lead, and maybe the status is equal to new or something along those lines, or whatever you want to do there. Then the action is send an email, and then you've got all these settings. The action that I added was send email, and then you've got quite a few different little things that you need to add. So if I click add new, there's all these choices. I've kind of pre-added them. So 2, this could be, however you want it to work. It could be maybe the person that's assigned to the record. That might come in handy. So maybe this owner thing. So what would we do? We'd use some more field syntax there. Field owner email. Something like that. So that would go into the user, because we know the owner field is a actual user, and it would send it to their email address in their, for their user. But you could do that. That would be dynamic, or you could just simply go, example at domain.com. So maybe it always sends it to this one. You could add a CC or a blind carbon copy or whatever you want there. From maybe I would normally recommend for all workflow emails that you set up a system email account that you use. So maybe it would be, your company, or excuse me, maybe something like Ivinex at yourcompany.com or automated, or whatever you want to call it. Email account. Once you set up a system email account, you would be able to pick it from here. So you would need to do that first. And then email template. That's one of the selections we can add. And we would just pick it. We would just say, which one do we want to use? That one. Okay, so that's set up. And then, like when we were sending the manual email and we selected to be notified, we can also add another, item down here that is notification. I want to be notified when it's opened, and what template would it use? My generic sales notification. And then if I save this, it's pretty much set up to go. Every time, I have a new lead, it sends this email and uses these templates. All right, so I think that's a general idea of how to set up a workflow for that. All right, trying to see if there's anything else I've missed. I think I've covered about everything about email templates. So I do have I can take a minute and answer any questions, if there are any questions. No questions? Must mean I'm doing a good job here. So, all right. This webinar looks like we're about 38. Oh, looks like I have a question here real quick. Okay. Oh, I have a question about my email templates popping up. Something about popping up. There is one thing I do want to make note of, is that if you go to send an email, let's see, right here. If you go to send an email and you don't see this button right here, please contact Ivinex support, and we can enable that for you. I've noticed sometimes it might not be enabled by default, but it should be available to you. But if it's not, just contact us if you don't have this button. Okay, there's one other question. One moment, let me read this. Yeah, another question about enabling or this button right here. It is possible, it's kind of rare, but it is possible that you have the ability to create them but not select them. So please contact support if you do not have this option available to you. Just send an email to us. Okay, I think that's about it. So I think we'll move to close here. All right. I want to point out we do have a training site, training.ivinex.com. I do post all these webinar videos there. I'm recording this now. I'm going to add it to the training site. I like comments. Leave me a comment. Let me know if it worked, if you learned from this webinar, or if you have comments about it, how I could do better. If you're not already on the webinar list, I'm assuming you are if you're here. If there's somebody you know or someone in your company that is not, I do have a widget at the bottom right of the training site. Put in the email, click submit, you're on the list. I do post all webinar events on the Ivinex Facebook page. If you go to the Facebook page and click like, our feed comes into your timeline so that you'll know every time there's a new event that I add. You can also leave us comments there and even confirm that you're attending. So that should be about it. I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar on email templates. And I hope to see you guys next time. Thank you.